All right, all right, all right, all right. Hello, hello, hello. We have a couple things going on here. Adobe Animate about to happen. Now, when you get in here, you're gonna see some. When you get in here fresh, I should say. Perhaps you've never opened up Adobe Animate. Here we are. Yeah, you'll get these wild tutorials. First off, these tutorials, amazing, amazing. Don't squash these tutorials. All right, these tutorials are pretty good. Definitely, absolutely nothing wrong with these tutorials. They all will show you different types of animation, kind of like more simple fish ones, but also ones that are kind of free flowing, like the tentacles of the jellyfish here. Which you could use for a squid, or you could use for a wiggly arm of sorts, right? Anyhow, very useful. Yeah, get into that if you wish. Why are we using Adobe Animate? We're using Adobe Animate because it's a little bit more industry standard, is a little bit more intuitive than Photoshop, and Photoshop is amazing for many, many reasons. But one thing that really stands out for us in Photoshop is the ability to animate. So why wouldn't we use a software that is just dedicated to animation, right? And that's what we're doing here. We're going to use Adobe Animate, previously known as Flash. Adobe bought it, rebranded it, made it better, way, way better. And here we are today. Many 2D things are created with Adobe Animate, but with Photoshop too. But and so most of the time it's in concert, right? So keep that in mind. Anyhow, we get to this screen. This is what you should be seeing by now as well. We'll do a create new, and we will move forward with this. You're also going to populate, upon selecting create new, a sort of document settings situation. I'm just going to create 1080 by 1080 for width and height. I'll keep it pixels. 24 is a fantastic frame rate. Why am I choosing 24? I am choosing 24 because I'm going to do a sort of every other frame sort of animation. So every 2 frames I'll do something, right? And then I'll go back and go from there and fill in the gaps, so to speak. You can do frame by frame, that's totally fine, but it's just fun to kind of see where it's going to end up and then have a visual of where it was and where it will be while you are drawing. And thus we will be using something called onion skin, as a sort of tool to help us see that. The last frame or previous frame and the post frame, or the frame following what we're actually drawing or manipulating, right? Let's hit create once our settings are good. One thing before we leave though, we have all these options. I want you to focus in on character animation. These are more geared towards specific sort of target markets, I guess you could call them. Character animation honestly is going to give you everything you need for these as well, but there's certain optimizations in here that are good and handy dandy, but character animation is more than ideal. You'll be okay. We're going to use that because we're making characters, right? So keep that in mind. Create. And what is this tutorial all about? This tutorial is actually all about giving you a sort of part 1 basics for Adobe Animate. In addition, I'm going to be making a very sort of succinct GIF at the same time. So you're going through the basics of Adobe Animate, learning all of that, while also diving into your GIF challenge as well, if you are at that point. Of course, you can always revisit these videos, and this will apply to video as well. So if you're exporting as MP4, that's fine. If you're exporting as GIF, that's fine. Whatever it is, and I imagine if you're going to make sprites, we would probably export to GIF, maybe use something called Piskel, and create a spreadsheet magically. Magic spreadsheet. We don't even have to do it ourselves manually, and there is something to be said about that. we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. I don't know if while you're watching this video if we've done that yet. So let's move forward. Now, what the heck is this? This is an artboard, and that's where all the action happens. If you want to change settings again, let's say you didn't really like the settings before, well, you can do one of two things. You can actually go into properties, because it's populated here under dock, the dock tab in properties. And you can change the color of your stage. I'm actually going to change it to this. Whoops, to that. Because that white is just a little bit abrasive for me. I just want to dull that down a little bit. All good on here. I definitely recommend doing that before you start animating if you're going to make changes. Couple things. So you can also hide or show contents outside of frame box, outside of this stage, right? Let's go through a couple things just for the stage itself. So there are a few buttons at the top here. One being the center stage, one being rotation. So you can actually rotate the stage itself, right? Very nice. And then you have this, which is a sort of clipping tool, so that we don't see the stuff that hangs off of the actual stage. So, just do a little example here. Right now, I'm not seeing it, right? Oh, actually, you know what? It's the same color as the background, so you wouldn't see it anyways. Let's change that fill. So we'll go into our Properties tab, and we'll review the Properties tab again, but for now, let's just do that. And maybe I'll pick something like this, and I'll just go beep right off the page. And if I select this, oh, look at that. It clips right off. So nice. Well, geez, now I have this stage that's crooked, though. How do I fix it? Just click that little button there, center stage. Yeah, but it doesn't really fit the window. Okay, well, then we're going to go ahead and scale some things. Go to Fit in Window or Show Frame. Fit in Window works just fine. Show Frame. We don't really have a sort of set frame yet. It kind of looks like we do, actually, because we have a black dot there. Okay, I don't know why that's there, but, well, it kind of has to start with one frame, right? Great thing about this is that we are back to normal. So those are those tools. Following that, we have a whole toolbar that we have accessed previously, or rather, we're familiar with, from Photoshop, right? Check this out. So we have the Move tool, whereby you can move things. I'm just going to scoot over here a little bit. What can I move? Well, you can select things, right? Okay, there we go. We can edit, we can move, right? That's nice. Control Z. Now, this is partly due to the fact that we can also do that, right? What is that? That's the transform tool, very similar to Control T, transform tool in Photoshop. Anyways, you can move things, right? That's the beauty of it. So you make something, you can move it. There are certain settings in here when it comes to brush strokes. One being, like, if this is on, let's say create object, right? If I turn that on, and maybe I turn it on there, whoop, creates objects. And if I do this, then kind of, now it's kind of rasterized, so to speak, so I can actually just manipulate it. Whereas if this wasn't on, and I'm just going to delete that because I don't know it. If that wasn't on, basically, we wouldn't be able to, we would actually then be able to manipulate this. So if I do that, let's say the object mode shouldn't be on. So now I can't actually manipulate that, right? Unless that becomes an object. So if I do an object, let's say do this, okay. And I want to just kind of select the frame itself. Okay, that's that. Now we're in object mode here. Turning that to the on position, or it should be on. Kind of confusing, right? Well, okay, so now we can kind of manipulate the brush stroke itself. Kind of nice. That's not really what the tutorial's about today, though. I'm just going to keep that kind of brief and move forward. So, moving on. Very similar to Photoshop's property panels, we have like all these different tools, all these different options, etc. What you want to do is just kind of mosey on through these, right? Go through each one, see what they do. You already know what most of them do. Obviously, this is kind of this is your sort of move tool, but we call it selection tool here. Also a selection tool, I suppose, to some extent in Photoshop, but this being similar to Illustrator's sort of path selection or curve selection, direct selection, I should say. Here's that free transform tool. So if we did that, select it, we can do a little squish and squash, stretch, squish, whatever you want to call it. Very important in animation to kind of form a realistic movement, etc. This is the fluid paintbrush tool. You won't really need to worry about that too much if you have a pressure sensitive pen already, just like this one in the screen. Just gonna do undo on that. We'll work with that a little bit more, but as you can see, I mean, you can adjust in the properties tab the size, the minimum size, and it'll populate accordingly. Make a little earlobe here, something like that. Control Z, 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 Z. Nice. Pencil tool. Hello. Similar to an eyeball, but notice how it kind of snapped to what I wanted. There's some nice stuff going on with that in Adobe Animate. Keep that in mind. It may be useful for you, right? So if you're not the best at drawing, that might help a little bit. Now, would I want that on for me personally? No. I think that would just freak me out a little bit. So I would probably go into properties, just do object drawing. It looks like it's still doing it. Just have my settings wrong. Anyhow, explore this. I just kind of gave a bad example there. Where the heck is this thing? Is this the, yeah, see, that's off, so. Style with normal scaling, and it looks like it just wants to kind of do what Illustrator does. That's fine. We're just going to keep it as is for now. You should be able to, there we go. Okay. So yeah, you just have to kind of hold down or press right click on that. I'll probably do something like ink, actually. And it might smooth it out a little bit, but for the most part, it's some zany looking dude. I don't know. But yeah, you can adjust free flow, free not flow, free ink, whatever the heck you want to call it. Here we have the eraser tool. So let's say I draw something here. Well, that's easy enough. I know what that does. Say I have a square. Oh, nice. many things. Oh, polystar, rectangle, primitive, all sorts of goodies. And of course, the classic line tool. Can't beat it. Nice, very nice. Sunshine and looks like a cat, but a rectangular cat. That's very surprised, right? Just very surprised. Oh my gosh. Anyhow. Maybe they're very frustrated about something, or they're sad, or they're very worried, right? There you are. Explore these. I'm not going to get too in depth. This one we will be messing around with at some point. Perhaps not right away, but we are going to get around to that. let's move on to the timeline, because that is important. Glad to have showed you those tools, though. Trying to keep this a little bit quick for you, but I will timestamp stuff, so keep that in mind. And just in case I didn't go over this, if you do have a sort of tool that's not populating, you can drag it right in. How did I get this window? I pressed those little 3 dots right there, okay? Keep that in mind. You just drag it right in. You can also do the same to take them off. Cool. Nice. Let's get into the timeline a little bit here. So what the heck do we have to do? Well, first and foremost, notice that it's kind of like a gray box down here, and it's not really a filled in dot. That means it's kind of an empty keyframe at the moment. A frame nonetheless, but it's an empty keyframe. One thing that I think we should do is look at what happens when we put something in it. And to do that, we have to explore some of these tabs a little bit. First and foremost, let me just reiterate the dock tab. I know we went over this before, but yeah, everything kind of relies on this from the outset, right? A lot of changes will occur in here to the whole file. So let's save it so the whole file doesn't actually escape us into the ether of our computers. And I'm okay with this. I'm gonna do tutorial part 1. Right, and I'll go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead with, I'll stick with that FLA doc. Okay, save that. There we are. Tutorial part 1 GIF. Cool. Couple of things to note. We have something called a library. What the heck is a library, right? Well, libraries are nice because you can actually use things from your real library. Ours being, well, the library of files that we have, right? So I'm just gonna pop one of my old drawings in here. I'll just pop this old lady that I drew in Burma a long time ago. And there it is, right? Still, our frame is kind of grayed out. This hasn't turned black yet. We want that to turn black so that we know that, you know, it's live or what have you. So let's try something. Well, what is the library first and foremost? This is where you can hold all the assets that you want to manipulate and animate. Let's say you make a sort of vector of sorts, right? Or a sort of transparent image of just like kind of a T-pose of a character, right? You can then make little bones and manipulate it using that, what I mentioned before, asset warp tool, right? But that asset needs to sit somewhere for quick access, and that's going to sit right here in your library. Cool. Let's go ahead and just basically you would drag and drop files right into the library. Let's use something in the library. We only have one thing, so we'll use that, and we'll use it to explore, or as a means to explore the timeline. Using that, once we kind of have that in, let's say I kind of drop it in here, right? Oops. I can then do a couple of things. So first and foremost, you know, okay, this is my object, all good, right? But it's not really populating the way I want it to. Notice that it's kind of off the screen. I'm just using that clip content button. Off the stage, I should say. So we're gonna call this a stage, right? Not an artboard, but a stage. That's how you have to see this now. Photoshop, we call it an artboard here, or a canvas. Here we call it a stage. I'll keep it like this for now. However, I want to do a couple things. One thing being, I want to align this. So this is an object, so I can go into properties, and I can go to frame, I can go to document. I want to go to, let's see here. I want to go, it's going to go from properties to align. And I should be able to sort of click these or distribute these accordingly. Position and size. Ah, that's what happened. I didn't convert it into a symbol yet. Alright, well let's just look at this real quick. So what's going on here? Oh, all of a sudden it's actually a frame, right? I gave it something and it made a frame. That's really good. I like that. Cool. Nice. Now, how do we kind of align it though, right? That's the one thing that I think is pretty important. So if I go back to that, let's say I go to the... I'll just go to next size, center, and center. Doesn't seem to really want to do anything. One thing I can do is just press Q on the keyboard. Just gonna bring this, whoops, Control Z. I'm actually gonna hold down Shift while I do it just so it's kind of uniform. Then I'll do that, and there we go. For whatever reason, I didn't have this checked, so we're good now. This will bring it in the center, to the right, to the left, up, wherever, where have you, excuse me. Some of these are gonna mess up the size. Be careful with that. So I would actually recommend just kind of sticking around here, right? Don't worry too much about that. Press Q again, just so we can get that transform tool out. Let's hold down Shift, uniformly bring it up. And there we go. We have my drawing populated here. I'll just click off. There we go. Excuse me. And then I don't really need that on anymore. Very well. So that is how you would get something in there and also align and adjust. Cool. Good. Alright, so one thing I'll do, back on the timeline here, because we've got all that sorted out, I'm just gonna move this over so I can have you visualize the frame by frame. Boop. Moved it over. We're good. First frame, second frame, first frame, second frame. Right? Now, I want to do something with this, this motion, this animation, right? I'm gonna need a few layers though, so let's learn how to do that. So the way we work in Adobe Animate, there are multiple types of frames, right? Well, mainly two. So you have the regular frames, but you also have the keyframes. The keyframes are going to give you, well, the image, and that's where your content should be changing while you're trying to make an animation. It should be drawing, right? A regular frame is just a sort of empty frame, and it's going to kind of populate like this, where it's just kind of like it may have, just not a black dot in it. Let's just put it that way, right? This one has content, this one doesn't. It's as simple as that. Now, if I want to make more frames, there are a couple ways to go about it. One solid way to go about it is to simply select a bunch of frames, in here. So we'll just maybe do a shift select, right? Perhaps we'll go to 30. And then you would just click F5. There you have it. That is a swath of empty frames to which we can then utilize. Now, it's good to have layers, right? Recommending that you put the sort of sketch at the bottom, so a sketch of what you're doing. Let's imagine that this is a sketch of an action at the end of something, right? And we just kind of use it as a reference. This would be a layer of a rough layer, and this is common practice where you have a sort of sketch, like literally one image, and then you have a sort of rough animation on top of that, and then the polished, which now we're not going to get through all these all at once in this tutorial. We're going to use the polished one come part 2 of this tutorial, so keep that in mind. I'm just going to get through roughed. I'm going to show you how to export the GIF. You can use that to make your GIF. Obviously, make it as polished as you want. But the main steps will be kind of visualized in rough. So there you have it. That's that. We're going to keep that there. Keep that keyframe there. So that was F5 after doing a shift select of the frames I wanted, and that was that. Now here we have our rough. I'm just going to start with that. I'm not going to worry about anything else really. A great way to animate is mainly to kind of get your keys set up manually. I wouldn't. It's fun to do the automatic because you don't have to really work as hard at it. But I really want to show you how to just insert a keyframe one by one, so you don't have to. That way you know it, and then you can move to the automatic insert keyframe and be a little bit more free forming with your drawing and your animation. And we'll be using a sort of animation technique where we go one frame, skip a couple, draw that, and then we draw the in-between. So we're going to do that. And we'll repeat that process, right? So not exactly frame by frame, but the sort of every other frame technique. Now, if you want to create your own frame, key frame, you can actually press F7, and it'll actually give you key frame, and it's going to wait until you actually do something for that to turn black, right? Now, alternatively, you could make another one, right? And it goes on and on. Let's go ahead and put something here. Maybe even put something here. Wouldn't mind bringing that back, actually. I want this to cover the whole swath. I'm actually going to undo that. I'll go into this one here. And we're just going to draw a little bit. I'm going to do that with the Wacom tablet here. So if you see me off screen, that's why. I'm just going to draw and I'll start here actually. I'm going to draw a simple, I'm going to just draw, a teardrop, right? So I want her to be kind of crying a little bit. Let's see how big this is. It's really big. Control Z. And just going to bring that down. Now what I did there is I got the scale size to change with my with my actual pen. You can actually that is on. This is your pressure. So if you're using a Wacom, you can have pressure. Minimum size is way up, so I'm not really getting that variation I want. Keep that in mind as well. Eleven's good though. I'll keep this at 2. That's fine. Maybe even bring it down to 1. I'll just do a nice blue color. Notice how this is changing down here. Keep that in mind, right? We're on that rough layer, okay? Keep in mind what happens here. So perhaps could have a tier, right? Now, it might be wise to kind of just keep everything the way it is. Maybe there's some little welling of a tear there, right? Welling of a tear there. But nothing's really happening yet. Now, one thing you can do is you can actually press the period button, the full stop period button, 1, 2. And now, we should be able to. So what I want to do is I want to have that keyframe. You know what I have to do? I have to do a couple things here. One thing I'll do, because I already have my kind of frame set up, I'm gonna hold down Alt. I'm gonna click this. I'm just gonna drag it. What this is gonna do is kind of duplicate it for me. Oh, might have actually held down the wrong thing here. Yeah, held down the wrong thing. So I'll actually, instead, I'm gonna actually do this. I've decided I'm gonna actually just go, I'll press the period button, 1, 2. And, well, first and foremost, I'm gonna actually do this. So I'll do Control C. And this is actually like way too big. I don't need all this quite yet. So I'm just gonna get rid of this. Let me just do this. So I want to show you how to do this. Cool, okay. Control C for that. And we'll go over 1, Control V, nice. And if we go over there, then we're good, right? That's the nice thing about that. Now I'm gonna press the comma hotkey to go backwards. Period forwards, comma backwards, right? It's kind of nice. Moving on here, I can then go ahead and take a little paintbrush, and if I wanted to, I could actually do a little auto keyframe. But instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna press F7. If I press F7, I'll have a little keyframe that populates. And then I'll do I want it to stay there though, so I'm not going to, no, I don't want a blank one, I want an actual one. It's not going to do it for me. Let's do the auto, and we'll go from there. Just seems to be the best bet here. And that's just on me, because I'm just not so tired right now. I don't have time to think. So we're gonna just well up the tiers. Wherever you think those tiers would be, you would just plop them in, right? And then we'll just go F5, F5, so that's 2 frames up. And now what's it going to look like maybe a couple frames up? Press F7. No, I don't want F7, because F7 is going to give me that. If you're on auto, you can just keep on doing F5, F5, and then when you draw, it'll actually populate, so don't worry about any of the other stuff. I want it to be kind of like over here. I just think that's nice. And maybe over here. Like that. Right, it's real simple, nothing crazy here. But to get to that, I actually need to do something in the middle. One thing that's helpful is to put onion skinning on at this point. So now I can see, you know, a little before, a little after, etc. Right? And that's what's going to help us succeed here. We have all that. Very good. It gets a little deeper there now. Here, I'm probably going to just go like a little something like this, you know, a little in between thing, right? Skin off. Yeah, that's about right. I don't know why it's different there. I'll have to fix that later, but you sure. And now, we're now on that sort of last frame there. We'll do F5, F5. And what's it going to look like later on? We're just going to go all the way down a little bit. Maybe it just gets a little bit harder for the little lady, right? The poor thing, she's crying, she's sad. I don't know what happened to her. Go over here, onion skin on. Here we go. Now it may come to the point where you need to tween a little bit or ease into things a little bit. If that's the case, you can always do another F5, but on the frame before that, that needs that kind of tweening, so to speak, right? And we'll just say F5. There we go. And in between, we can then add that extra thing or the extra amount of drawing right in between there. That'll help us to kind of ease into, they call it easing. That'll ease into the sort of last frame, right? Now I don't need all of these to be that long. So one thing that I'll do is I'll actually just kind of grab these, whoops. And I'll actually bring that there so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so that's just like a basic sort of, nothing crazy type of animation. You can actually press enter on your keyboard to play your animation. Just selecting all of them and then bringing it back, right? Enter. Now let's say I want to see it loop, right? I don't want it to just be doing whatever it's doing. I want to see a loop here. And actually, we should just trash these. We really don't need these. So trash. You can actually right click, clear frames, right click. Oh, well, you can cut them too. It's not really working out here. Ah, there we go. My bad. Because all I really want is frames. There we go. I just need that one, right? So I don't know why I lost track there. I think the update they might have done something. Anyhow, we're good now. I found it. So remove frames. That's how you do it. I would like to sort of make maybe a sort of copy of this, so to speak, right? Or maybe I want it to just loop, and then maybe I'll make a copy after that. Let's just see how it goes. So if you press enter or press the play button, it'll loop. Obviously you have to expand your stuff here, your timeline, so that it can actually loop. Notice that that goes away, that blue bar, when I select that loop button. So that loop button really relies on that blue bar. Press enter, and yeah, so you have just some tears coming down, the poor thing. All right, so let's just imagine that this is the GIF, and just to keep this sort of whole situation brief, I'll just cut it off here for the whole GIF scenario. How would you then export your actual animation so that you can actually use it? Well, what you would do after you're done is you would go to File and File. Oh my goodness gracious! Okay. Exports, animated GIF. Boop. What's going to populate is this gigantic image here, and I'm just going to adjust it for you. It's really not, I don't know why it's populating like that. Let's you'll be able to actually do fit on screen. Optimized is good. This just helps you kind of look around. You can preview it. We're making a GIF, right? And notice that the previewed GIF, it actually populated in a sort of window for the web because it's an HTML file. That's fine. What I'd like from you though is not a .html. I'd like an actual GIF that's saved to a computer and is an actual file. You can change the background if you want, if you think that's going to be useful. Why not, right? Maybe we'll use that one instead, or we'll make it a little bit more gray, or you'll just do some strange stuff with it. There we go. It doesn't really matter, just have fun with it. Transparency is always good if you're making characters. So let's say there are some characters that you've created and you have, they have arms and such, that you don't want them a part of the background. You want it to be a separate animation. Well, that's, what you would do. You would make sure it's a transparency versus a matte. I'm not too concerned right now. I'm gonna keep it as it is. Adaptive is fine. That's a good one. This may be too many colors, but I'm okay with it. I'll keep it that way for now. We can keep these settings. We can actually just save it as it is, as a file. So tutorial part 1 GIF. It's gonna go into my tutorial videos section. It is a GIF, save. Now I'm gonna open that up though, because I want to just make sure that inside of my RIT stuff and 119 I have tutorials, video tutorials. There we are. Oops. And there it is down there. I just have to get down to it. Oh, it's a bit too long, isn't it? There we go. Open that up and notice that the tears are coming down kind of quick, right? That's because I'm it's 24 FPS. If you do 12 FPS, things will be a little bit different for you, but that's not bad. You can adjust accordingly, have fun with it, but yeah, that is how you would kind of make a GIF. The same is sort of said for the Photoshop iteration of GIF making. But yeah. Now in the next tutorial, I'm going to get into, how could we possibly also have, let's say, in between here, we have, and I'm just going to do a little, I'm going to do a little preemptive thing about it, just so that we have that going on for us. I'll just bring that in, I'm going to bring all that. I just want to expand this out a little bit. Take that off. Bring that to here. Let's say those tears stop, or rather, there's something that maybe there's a ball or something that occurs, right? I'm still on the automatic frame, so I have to be wary of that. I am going to just select, those two. You can literally drag across, you don't have to press F5. And I'll just skip ahead, so 1, 2. And I want a ball, I'm just going to do a simple ball here. Make the color a sort of reddish color. I want this ball to come out of the nose. I'll actually just for example's sake, because it's already at that point, I'm going to do that. F5, F5. It's going to become a bit larger as it falls. Was I on the wrong, interesting. I wonder why it's showing me that. I'm gonna erase this because we don't do that. F5, F5. And I want this to be like the sort of resting spot for this thing. I want it to kind of act like a little ball of sorts, or some kind of putty that just kind of squishes to the ground. Okay, good. That's how it's supposed to function. Well, F5, F5. Just erasing. E on the keyboard. Now I'm gonna get into the sort of in between stuff once I sort of get this all situated. I want to, if that is indeed my last frame, I don't want it to be, I don't need it to be like that. I don't need it to, I don't need it to actually go all the way across. You can actually just bring it right back to where it was, which is just one frame. And I'll just, I'll then kind of hold down Alt and move down somewhere. There we go. Cool. That'll be the sort of last frame that I want, right? I'm cool with that. Last frame. Boom. But I am going to sort of redraw this other one because it's just not necessary. So there's the middle. Let's do another middle here. We're just going to actually get rid of this guy. We don't need all that. Cool. I do want to put onion on because I can't see what's going on. There we go. And we'll just draw it like that. The onion. And remember stretch and squish, right? Right now we're falling, so we should be kind of stretching a little bit. If we go in here, we're also kind of getting larger. That's just how we have this kind of drawing, right? And I think we could even go as far as really stretching this out in this way. There we go. You should be able to really squish when it hits the ground. It's gonna be nice. So satisfying squish. So crying tears and then a squish. Right. Put that on, bring this out, and like I said, this isn't like something fancy that I'm making for y'all. It's you know, it's a simple kind of animation. I just wanted to kind of show some basics here. Now we can actually make that a little bit less sketchy by adding another frame here, perhaps. So instead of blue, it looks like we had some color changes going on there. So now it's kind of getting a little larger. Nothing's really happening there, so
let's go ahead and get a little something going here. There we go. Right. And then skin off. Let's take a look. And looks like there's a couple things on that one frame. Okay, done with that. What's that? One, two. On that frame, we can actually get rid of that. We don't need it. Squishy squish. Alright. Yeah, that's a little bit better, a little slower at the start, which is nice, right? So, and that's that. Go ahead and export your GIFs, hand them in as a challenge, and you are good to go. Have fun with it. Don't stress. I'm gonna have a more in-depth tutorial for you all here. If not, you know, if you can't wait, I should say, there is the Photoshop one, right? So go on there for that on the labs and tutorials module there, and you should be good to go. With that, enjoy, and talk soon.